This is the new Kia Stonic, and if you're wondering why I'm running, it's to explain the fact that its name comes from a mixture of speed and tonic. Of course, that is just marketing nonsense, isn't it? Essentially what this car is, it's one of those small hatchbacks that's made to look a little bit like an SUV because they're way cooler, aren't they? So the starting price of this car, well, it just kicks off at over £16,000. The interior design of this car is pretty cool, you know. I like the features on the dash, I like the design of the ventilation system, I like the 2-level centre console there. It's interesting, that's good. As for material quality, well, yes, every plastic you touch is hard and bristle, but I can't complain too much because that's pretty much the same with all of these kind of cars at this price point. Now, there is one thing to think about with this car, and that's the trim level. So the entry-level car, it's got pretty much all you need. You get a touchscreen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, so even though it doesn't have sat-nav, you can use the navigation from your phone. It has things like cruise control, it has air conditioning, you get rear parking sensors, so that's all good. This particular car, though, is the first edition. And if you want the car to look as good as it can, then you need the first edition car, because otherwise you don't get the contrasting outside paints, you don't get this contrasting colours here in the dash, and it just doesn't feel quite as exciting to sit in as a result. It makes you beg the question, why bother? So this is the first edition car, like I said, and it starts from £19,500. So should you go for it? I personally would probably upgrade in order to get the nicer looking trims and stuff. In terms of the actual satellite navigation system that you get with this particular car and the normal infotainment system you get on the lower spec car, it's all right. I mean, the graphics aren't the sharpest and it's not the most bright or snazzy system, but overall, it's not too bad. Let's just talk about storage space. So you can fit a decent sized bottle in the door bin. You've got some more storage down here as well, and like I said, there's a cubby space here which is ideal for your mobile phone. You've got charging points there. It's even got an aux in, which is a little bit old fashioned, but hey, you do have your USB as well. One thing I need to mention about this car though is the seating position. No, it's fine, absolutely fine. There's lots of adjustment in the steering wheel and the driver's seat. But the oddest thing is, this kind of car is supposed to feel jacked up like an SUV, but I can actually get as low as in a sports car. Though if you're short, you probably will want to jack your seat up. But even then, it never feels particularly high riding, so it just feels like a normal hatchback, really. Well, I'll just put this seat back down to my normal driving position so we can check out space in the back. It's all right. It's okay. You know, it's not the biggest. There's some knee room, which is all right. Headroom's okay for me, though people over 6 foot will find it a little bit tight on head space. The one issue I do have is this. The seat is quite low, so you don't get much under thigh support. So on longer journeys in the back, it's not going to be the most comfortable. If you need to carry 3 at once, at least the floor is almost completely flat, so there's plenty of foot room, and the middle seat isn't too terrible. And the body, well, you know, this kind of car, it's not that wide, so really it's going to be a bit of a squeeze. Let's move on to the boot. The one thing about the Stonic is that the boot really isn't that much bigger than the Rio on which this car is actually based, and it trails that of other small SUVs such as the Renault Captur quite considerably in size. There's also a bit of a load lip to lift stuff over, which is a bit annoying when you're loading heavy items into the car. This particular model I've got here does have some underfloor storage, which is nice though. And that raisable boot floor does mean that when you fold the seats down, you do get, look, a flat low floor, which does make it easier when you're sliding items to the front of the car. There's a few places where you can hang things off, like shopping bags, off those hooks there and there. There's a few tethering points here and here as well.
Now then, it's time for the Carwow 5 annoying things about this car.
The main manual for the car will fit into the glove box, but there's a separate one for the infotainment system, and they've decided to do it in every single language possible pretty much. As a result, it's so thick that it won't fit in the glove box with the main manual, so it has to be stored in a separate pocket in the boot. This badge doesn't appear to have been put on straight. It's sort of droopy. Looks like it could do with some tonic to perk it up. This car makes so many annoying little beeps and bongs, so let me just show you. Right, thank you. Silence at last. Why does it need so many? If you use the rear screen wash while you're stationary, Not only does the presenter get covered in water, but it drips down and all pulls here on this ledge in the bumper, and it just looks a bit messy. You get watermarks and stuff like that. Oh, it's a bit untidy. And I'm a bit wet. In places, this car just feels a little bit flimsy. I mean, look at this. There's quite a lot of flex. That wouldn't happen in a Seat Arona. Just saying. Kia fanboys. Yeah, I'll read the comments.
Don't worry, there's still plenty to like about this car. Here's the Carwow 5 cool features.
Not only can you get this car with heated front seats, you can also get it with a heated steering wheel. Top of the range really is fully loaded. You can personalise the range-topping version of the Kia Stonic by choosing from 4 different contrasting roof colours: black, red, orange, and this lime green. Look at this, there's a little hole there which you can put the seat belt buckle in so that when you fold down the seats, it doesn't snag. Thanks to this split design, when you roll down the rear window, it goes all the way down so you can lean out if you want to. Do you like to lean out? Oh yeah, you do, don't you? Are you troubled by low sun in winter mornings or evenings? Well, you'll need your sunglasses, but where do you put them for the rest of the time? Don't worry, you've got a padded glasses holder here in the Stonic. Now, if you're the kind of person that wants one of these kind of cars for that raised driving position, you may be a little bit disappointed with this car because, yeah, it doesn't seem much better than just a normal hatchback actually. You don't really feel any more superior than other motorists. Other than that though, visibility is actually pretty good and it's an easy car to drive in town. Steering's light, gear shift is nice, clutch is nice and light as well, and the brakes, they're smooth, they're not too grabby. Yeah, it's all right. The only thing that does put me off slightly is the suspension. It's just a little bit on the firm side. It's not uncomfortable, but it does tend to feel a little bit fidgety over bumps in the road. Never seems to settle. Just come on, settle, Kia, it'll all be all right. Thankfully, when you get up to speed on the motorway, the suspension does settle down a bit and the car feels reasonably sorted. One thing you do notice though when you're going faster is the noise. You get quite a bit of tyre noise and wind noise as well. Then there's the engines. You want to avoid the 1.4 litre petrol because it's a bit weedy and it's noisy. I wouldn't go for the 1.6 litre diesel either because while it can do about 67 miles per gallon, it's quite rough. The engine in this car is the one to have, the 1 litre turbo petrol. So it's punchy. It'll do 0 to 60 in about 10 seconds, and when you put your foot down, it picks up well. It can feel a little bit gruff at lower speeds, but really it's okay, and it suits this car quite well. It's supposed to do 57 miles per gallon and I'm getting 41, which is all right. So then what happens when you come to a twisty road? Well, that slightly firmer suspension does pay off then, you see, because this car feels quite darty and nimble, and dare I say, it's a little bit sporty to drive. So you put it into a corner, it responds quite quickly to the steering, and it doesn't roll too much at all. That's one of the benefits, I guess, of it not being too tall like some other small SUVs. So then my verdict on the Kia Stonic: should you avoid it? Should you consider it? Should you shortlist it? Or should you just go right ahead and buy it? Well, I reckon you should consider the Kia Stonic. It's a pretty good car and it looks cool in this top spec version, but other small SUVs are a bit better to drive and more practical.